Welcome to BL-101, New Testament Greek, Lesson 1b. Today we're going to deal with Greek vowels. The purpose of the lesson is to recognize the Greek vowels, familiarization of the diphthongs and breathing marks, and to recognize Greek accents and punctuation. Let's first talk about the Greek vowel. The Greek alphabet contains a total of 7 vowels that are both short and long. The Greek short vowels consist of alpha, epsilon, omicron, Yoda, and upsilon. The long-sounding vowels are also alpha, Yoda, and upsilon, but instead of an epsilon, we now have an eta, and instead of an omicron, we have omega. It's a good idea to familiarize yourself with the various vowels. Whether you need to be able to differentiate between long and short vowels will depend upon your professor. Many Greek professors have decided to leave out the lesson materials relating to the rules of verb and noun accenting. This is because the tools we have today are far superior to the tools our predecessors had before us. Later on, I will be compiling supplement lessons on various rules of accenting, but for now, focus mainly on recognizing the specific vowels. Now that we have a basic understanding of the Greek vowel, let's turn our attention to the diphthongs. According to Google, a diphthong is a sound formed by the combination of 2 vowels in a single syllable, in which the sound begins as one vowel and moves to another. With your familiarization of the English language, you should recognize some of these diphthongs already in English. EA, as in feet, neat, seat. Oi, as in boil, soil, toil. I, as in aisle, or stare, or villain. We also have an oo, as in book, foot, hook. Also the double E, as in feet, sleep, sheep. And another example in the English language is the OU, as in account, confound, or stout. These are all diphthongs in the English language. Well, according to my resources on the internet, the English language consists of 8 diphthongs. The Greek only has 7. As a student, you'll be asked to commit these 7 diphthongs to memory. The first diphthong is an alpha Yoda. It's pronounced like I, as in aisle. The second diphthong is an epsilon Yoda. This is pronounced like an long A, as in fate. Thus, epsilon Yoda and eta are pronounced alike. The third diphthong is oi, and it's pronounced like oi, as in oil. The fourth diphthong is pronounced like an OW, as in cow, owl. Next one is an epsilon upsilon, and it's pronounced like a U, as in feud or fuel. Number 6 is omicron upsilon, and this has the double O sound, as in food, ooh. And the last diphthong that you'll be needing to memorize is an upsilon Yoda, and this is pronounced like the UEE sound, as in queen, has a we sound to it. These are the 7 diphthongs that you will need to memorize. If you've been looking at your Greek New Testament lately, you'll notice underneath certain vowels there's a little tiny mark. If you look closely at it, it looks a lot like a iota. When a iota unites with a long alpha, or eta, or omega to form one sound, this iota is written underneath the other letter instead of after it. This is called a Yoda Subscript. And below our examples, you see alpha, eta, and omega. These are long vowels when the alpha is long and the eta, omega are long. When you have a iota next to it, it's placed underneath it to create a Yoda subscript. This is important for you to recognize. It's not a blemish on the text. It is an actual marking called a Yoda subscript. You'll be required to familiarize yourself with that as well. Okay, so far we've covered the vowels and diphthongs. Next is the issue of breathing marks. A vowel or a diphthong at the beginning of a word will always have what is called a breathing mark. The breathing stands over a vowel, and in the case of a diphthong, it stands over the second of the two component vowels. In the Greek, there is no letter H for the h sound. Instead, that H appears with a vowel at the beginning of a word. There are two breathing marks. One is a rough and one is a smooth. The rough breather mark, which is if you take a look at the little squiggly above the vowel, indicates an H sound as to be pronounced before the initial vowel or diphthong. The smooth breather mark, which curves in the opposite direction, indicates that no such H sound is to be pronounced. Let me give you an example here below. Epsilon nu, N. If it has a smooth breather mark above it, it would be pronounced N. And this is the preposition, it's a static preposition, in. But if we change that smooth breather mark to a rough breather mark, and instead of saying N, it's pronounced hen. Hen. And this is the number 1. You'll learn to pick up on the rough breather marks and the smooth breather marks as you memorize your Greek vocabulary words. It's also a good idea to familiarize yourself with Greek accents. Granted, if you're not going to study the rules of accenting, the accents themselves are going to be a minor point. But still, to become familiar with the types of accents, the 3 types of accents in the Greek language, is a good thing to do. There are 3 Greek accents. The first one is an acute, which slopes upward. The second accent is a circumflex. Circumflex can either be a tilde shape or an arch shape above the vowel. And finally, we have the grave or the grave. I've heard it pronounced both ways, and that's a slope downwards accent. Granted, this initial lesson, we're not going to study the advanced rules of accenting. We might touch a little bit upon the ultima and the penult and the antepenult of the Greek words, but we're not going to force you to memorize these. Later on, like I said earlier, I'm hoping to have a supplement that will go into detail for those students who are wanting to learn the intricacies of rules of accenting, and there are rules. But initially, it's just good to know that there are 3 Greek accents, the acute, the circumflex, and the grave or the grave. And these accents, like the breathing marks, stand over a vowel. And in the case of a diphthong, the accent stands over the second of the 2 component vowels. Last but definitely not least is the Greek punctuation. Praise the Lord, there's only 4 really Greek punctuation marks we need to keep an eye on. The first 2 are easy enough. The comma, which looks like an English comma. This breaks up clauses. The second is a period, which ends a sentence. The last two are a little bit peculiar to the English-speaking individual, the English reader. It's the dot above the line. This is used either as a colon or a semicolon. And finally, we have the question mark that looks like a colon. It's actually the Greek question mark. Now, another reason why some Greek professors do not place an emphasis on punctuation, on accents, is that really they were not found in the original manuscripts. If you take a close look, here's an example. I don't know how this is going to turn out on the video, but this is an example of an old manuscript here. You'll notice there are no punctuation marks. Accents, not really. Might be occasional Yoda subscripts, that's fine. But really, the punctuation, the accents, they were added at a later time. They are not inspired, as the rest of the script is. They're added to differentiate on words, to clarify words. But the professor you might have might require you to memorize the punctuation, the accents, and the breather marks. If that's the case, then you need to memorize them. It's very, very important. It's very, very good. But you'll notice if you go on the internet, Google up a couple ancient manuscripts, look at them, you'll notice that the accents, the breather marks are really not there. The punctuation's not there. They're added later on. Okay, well that wraps up BL-101 Lesson 1. This video specifically dealt with Lesson 1B, the Greek vowels, and we're going to now focus next on Lesson 2, accents. J. Gresham Machen had a big emphasis on the rules of accenting. We're not going to deal with that heavily in this specific lesson. It's going to be a very, very short lesson. We're going to just talk about different syllables just so you can become familiar with it and know that there are rules of accenting with both the noun and the verb. But we're not going to place a heavy emphasis on it just because, number one, the tools that we have today are very superior to the tools that they had even back when I was a student. The computer age was just picking up in the late 80s and the early 90s. But the tools that we have now, wow, I wish I had them when I was a student. It would have made life tons easier. But we're not, Lesson 2, we're not going to place a heavy emphasis on it. I'd mentioned earlier about an additional supplement on rules of accenting. Yes, that's when we will be. That's for the hardcore Greek student. But this one here, we're really not. This will be next is Lesson 2. Very, very light lesson. If you need help with your studies in New Testament Greek, not just in Lesson 1 or Lesson 2, but anywhere, first year, second year, third year Greek, textual criticism, feel free to contact me via my website. I am NTGreekTutor.wordpress.com. And you can contact me there if we have arrangements set up where I've given you my UVU information, my Skype information, or my phone number. You're more than welcome to call me then. My focus really is to help you learn Greek. Well, God bless you. Take care and look forward to hearing from you.